post-Brexit deal passed. Today, Parliament's Speaker, John Bercow, blocked that from happening. He gave a lengthy explanation of House rules which prevent a repetitive debate and vote if circumstances haven't changed.
I hope that this ruling and explanation are helpful to the House.
Bercow laid out a path that Prime Minister Johnson could take to get to a vote, which involves today's release of the details of the deal negotiated with the European Union. I'm Steve Kastenbaum.
On Wall Street, the Dow up 23, S&P up 16. I'm Mike Moore.
Hey Heidi, are you ready for a prime experience?
What'd you have in mind, Don?
Head out to Quinault Beach Resort and Casino any Sunday through Thursday and take advantage of one of our prime experience hotel packages.
I'll bite.
Stay one night for $99 and we'll include a prime rib dinner for 2 people in Emily's Oceanfront Restaurant.
That's a great deal.
Book Sunday through Thursday starting just $99 and get prime rib dinners for 2. It's Quinault Beach Resort and Casino. Winners happen here.
Prior reservations recommended. Some restrictions and blackout dates apply. Limited number of rooms at this rate.
Time now for a quick look at our weather outlook. Looks like more rain tonight. We'll see a low around 55. Tomorrow, good chance of rain, but gradually becoming mostly sunny in the afternoon with a high near 60. Low around 47. A partly sunny Wednesday ahead with a high near 58. Low around 48. Mostly sunny Thursday, high near 61.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host, guest, and callers and are not necessarily those of KKNW, its management, or other advertisers. This program is sponsored by Sundown Communications.
The following is an encore presentation of Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair. Vicki returns to broadcast live in studio starting in November. Enjoy today's program. Welcome to Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair. Talk radio to inspire, inform, and stimulate. Bringing you enlightened discussions with authors, creatives, innovative business and health professionals, and ordinary people living extraordinary lives, sharing their expertise and life stories, making a difference one word at a time. Now, here's your host, Vicki St. Clair.
And welcome, everybody. Welcome. Well, coming up today, we're joined by thriller writer and psychologist A.F. Brady. She has a brand new book out about a sociopath. And since she's a psychologist, she's built a really good character there. The book is called Once a Liar. But first, I'm pleased to welcome back #1 New York Times bestselling author Robin Carr with her new book. It's a standalone book. It's called The View from Almeida Island. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Robin's work, she's the #1 New York Times bestselling author of more than 60 novels, including the critically acclaimed Virgin River, Thunder Point, and Sullivan's Crossing series. And she's also done standalone work. She's been #1 New York Times bestseller 11 times, no less. And again, this book, new one today, is called The View from Alameda Island. Robin Carr, welcome. Glad to have you back with us. It doesn't seem very long since you were with us last time, and here you have a whole new book. You must just keep going.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. I type.
Right. So tell us a little bit about this book. It starts out, it's a woman who is seeking her own life. She's oppressed by this rather obnoxious husband. I got quite irritated with him. I'm surprised.
Oh, he's pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm surprised she stuck it as long as she did, but give us a synopsis there.
Yeah, she's finally claiming her life back after 24 years of marriage, and really, typical of many abused women, she wasn't quite sure that she was really abused. She thought he was just cranky, and difficult to please, and that happens a lot. And it's really her grown daughter who points out to her that she remembers from the time she was very little that he did mean things.
Right.
He pinched and criticized and was not just difficult to please, but had a really short fuse.
And she thought, like many women, that because he wasn't necessarily physically abusive, he was just emotionally and verbally abusive. Just emotionally and just verbally.
Just emotionally, just verbally. And that'll just tear you down and leave you wondering, what just happened to me?
Right.
And what happened to the woman I was,
Right.
you know?
So Lauren is your main character, and she's going through this evolution. And how did you come up with her character? How did you develop that?
Sadly, she's fairly typical. She's smart, she's beautiful, she's accomplished, and she has so many qualities that you would think, where's her confidence? Why isn't she more worldly wise? Why does she not know that this husband doesn't deserve her? And the answer lies in she probably won't really realize how much until they're apart for a while, and other people point out to her that she was never covering it very well at all. And her marriage, a lot of people knew her marriage was far from perfect, and that her husband was a jerk.
Yeah. So, I mean, this, as you said right in the beginning, is a very common issue. Why do you think women stay so long?
Well, in this case, she's motivated primarily by her children and their future, and all he has to do, which is the most abominable thing a man can do, he threatened his own children. You'll never get the children. You'll never get alimony. You'll never get child support. I won't take care of you. I have more power. I will win. You know, all of those things tear down her self-esteem and make her afraid, and afraid of her children's future, not just her own, but her children's.
Right. So she's 24 years, I think it was, into the marriage, and she decides enough's enough and starts...
well, and her children are through college.
Yes.
That matters a lot.
Yes. And I think that's true of many women, too. And even men. I've known men stay in relationships until the kids have got through college. So
right. And I know a lot. I've known a lot of couples that I've said, "Oh, they'll never last a day past 25 years because when the children are gone,
right,
it will dissolve." And often it's true.
Right. Right. So she does get herself to a point. She's working up. She's covering her bases, and she meets what she later calls in the book a divorce buddy, who's an interesting character, landscape architect. So how did you come up with him, and why did you think they'd make a great match?
Well, what I love about Beau is his tenderness and his integrity. He married a woman who had 2 children, and he was the stepfather. And the children really needed a good role model. And he had named himself that man when he married their mother. And so he is determined that they may have, these little boys had different fathers, but they would only have one stepfather. And he mirrored Lauren's actions. He was determined to stay with them until they were grown.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a classic abused husband. His wife didn't hit him, but she minimized him, criticized him, didn't support him, took advantage of him, and then was did not go quietly.
Right, right. And since you bring up his character and how he was marginalized, and I've been reading a lot about this. I've seen a lot about it on Twitter lately. How more men are starting to read what were traditionally considered women's books. Are you finding that yourself?
Yeah, yes, I am, and I think it makes them better men.
Yeah, because why?
Yes, they need to learn what where women are coming from. You know, we from the time we were little girls. Now, I'm a woman of a certain age, so that's some time ago now. We've been taught to anticipate and understand our men. What about the other way around?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think having characters like this certainly is a draw. We need to take a very quick break. We're going to be right back with number one New York Times bestselling author Robin Carr, and her new book is called The View from Alameda Island. We'll talk a little bit about this island when we come back. You're listening to Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair.
Parkinson's disease affects as many as 1 million people in the United States. At the Parkinson's Disease Foundation, it's our mission to beat this disease. To learn about the Parkinson's Disease Foundation, or if you want to help support our work, visit our website, pdf.org, or call us at 800-457-6676. In the Northwest, contact the Northwest Parkinson's Foundation at nwpf.org.
Sensory sensitivity, repetitious behavior, lack of eye contact. You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair. Listeners trust the show and advertisers love the audience. Learn more at conversationslive.net.
Some people know a good thing when they hear it. Alternative Talk 1150.
And welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair, and it's my pleasure to have Robin Carr again on the show today. She's an award-winning #1 New York Times bestselling author of more than 60 novels, and we're talking about the latest today. It's a standalone book, The View from Alameda Island. Robin, why did you decide to write a standalone book? When you're writing series, do you sometimes need a break from them, or is it another reason?
Well, no, that's exactly the reason. And it's not that I need a break so much as in a perfect world, I get to write one book in a continuing series and one standalone women's fiction. They're not that terribly different, really, because in all of my women's fiction, you'll find some romance. And in all of my romance, you'll find a great deal of women's fiction. And I describe women's fiction as dealing with women's issues. And, of course, men have all the same issues: divorce, elderly parents, child raising, illness, all sorts of things. But men typically don't talk about them as much, try to deal with them as much, or men usually say, how about those jets, you know? And then, but you find that they need this discussion just as much, and if they're going through a divorce, they're just verbal.
Right. Yes, I know somebody who's going through one right now, and it's very verbal.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Alameda Island, because often authors will take a real place and then they'll fictionalize it. Tell us about Alameda Island in this case.
Alameda Island is the most charming little place. It's real close to Oakland and San Francisco and Berkeley. In fact, a lot of young professionals live there because they want to raise their families in a quiet, clean, real civilized place, but and not in a big city. But they commute to San Francisco or Oakland to work, and it's a quick commute. It's not a real long one, and they can get on the ferry or BART and get there quickly. And the island is old. It's been around for a long time. Many of the houses were built in the 1900s, and they're remodeled and renovated many times. And it's full of wonderful little shops and restaurants and pubs and bookstores and everything you could want. And a lot of the people on the island walk everywhere. And so you'll see, if you have a front porch, you'll be waving at your neighbors all the time, and if you want a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, you can walk down to the pub or restaurant and have your meal. When I went out there to promote this book, we had dinner at one of their favorite hangouts, walked a half a block to the bookstore, and then got in the car and drove 4 blocks to a house for a party. It was great.
I bet they love that you wrote about them, that island.
They do. And they're so, of everything, Alameda's so darn cute, The whole island is cute. And then, of course, the beach is not far away. Yeah. It's right down the road.
Yeah, I haven't been there, but I'm going to put it on my list based on this.
Yes.
I've heard you say, Robin, that it's important to you that when people have read your book, that they've been on a good journey with you, but they leave feeling happy. And
Yes.
so location, I imagine, is critical to your storytelling.
It is, and it has to fit the characters. And I'll tell you how this fits. Lauren had a big house somewhere up north in one of the big cities like Mill Valley, where it's a very affluent place, and the average real estate is quite high. And she chose for her transition a place that was neighborly and older and more settled, and she bought herself a 100-year-old house that had 3 bedrooms, like a grown-up dollhouse, and quaint with personality. And her favorite part was that she thought she might park her car and maybe never use it again. She walks down Park Street, which is their central street, and she gets her cup of coffee and buys her fresh fruits and vegetables and looks at art and meets a friend there for a glass of at one of the pubs for a glass of wine, and it's perfect for her. She feels so much less alone in a place like that.
Right. I remember going to the Scilly Isles a number of years ago off the southern coast of England, in between England and France. They're British, and there are no cars allowed on them. And you go around in golf cart or the little buzz, which is a little bit bigger than a golf cart if you want to get anywhere. And I love that. So I want to let's switch tacks here and let's talk about sex scenes, because I heard an interesting interview with you and your daughter, and she said it's excruciating reading when Mom writes sex scenes for her books.
You would think, I said to her, think about how it is knowing your 16-year-old daughter is having sex. I mean, you want to talk excruciating? Please. No sympathy to her.
No. And she's grown up now. But one of the things that I thought was a wonderful testament to you, Robin, as a writer and as a mother, is that somebody asked your daughter if she bragged about you, and she said no. She feels very humbled by your accomplishments. You didn't get your first your first New York Times bestseller until she was, I think, about 30. And so she said it's very humbling because she's always known you just to work, and put one foot in front of the other.
I did do that. I can't explain what kept me going either. I sold my first book in 1978 and had my first bestseller in 2008. So it was not, for me, a quick process.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. I made peace with the fact that I wasn't a huge success a long time ago and decided if I'm still writing without being a huge success, then why am I doing it? And the why is it's very satisfying. And it's especially satisfying when I have readers and when the readers tell me that the book changed their lives in some way, even if it's a very small way. And I've said before, people don't write to me and say, oh, my gosh, what a good writer you are. I mean, at least not very often. What they do write to me and say things like, I lost my mother last year, and we used to read your books together. Or, my baby died, and I know just how that character felt. And what that tells me is that readers are finding a safe place to deal with emotions that they're stuck with.
Yes.
They're hopefully real-life situations that get resolved in a kind and intelligent manner.
Yes, and there's that sense of connection between reader and author, which, I think kind of cements that, hey, this is a great book feeling.
Yeah.
So going back to the sex scenes, you're not getting out of that easily.
Oh, great.
How difficult is it for you to actually write them? Is it difficult at all?
It's very difficult. It's really, really hard. And I don't, and I can't, I read some books that have wonderful erotic sex scenes, and of course mine are not necessarily very erotic. They're, I hope they're loving and tender and kind-hearted and also very, very romantic.
Mm.
But it's one of the most important parts of an adult relationship, and it really can't be ignored.
Right. And do you find some readers, because I have a friend who writes urban fantasy, and she does have a lot of quite graphic sex scenes in her books. I can't read them because I know she's written them.
Oh,
but and her husband once told me that he's her experimenter, her field researcher. So that sealed the deal there. It's like, okay, I'm not reading any more of those. Thank you very much. But she's often said that some readers will come at her and say there's too much, and others will say there's not enough. I mean, it's a balance there you have to find that works for you and your books. Right.
Well, I get a big kick out of the readers who write and say, I'm never buying another one of your books because of those graphic sex scenes. And it's too bad because your writing is so excellent. And I think to myself, did it ever occur to you to skip the sex scenes?
Right.
I mean, you could just page right by them.
Right.
You'll still get the gist of the rest of the story.
Right, right. So, what did you learn writing this book? I think, with each book, each separate project, there's something that we take away from it. What have you taken away from writing The View from Alameda Island?
Well, one of the big things that happens in a divorce situation, especially in a marriage of many years, is that everybody has an opinion and a judgment, and down to your closest friends and relatives. Some will say, well, it's about damn time. And others will say, how could you? And children, adult children, will often take opposite sides during their parents' divorce. And not only did I see that in my research, but in talking to people who'd been through it, I am amazed at how often the adult children are on opposite sides. One is taking care of mom and watching out for her and hoping she'll be okay, and the other one is saying, oh, I'm so worried about Dad. He's gotten so thin,
Yeah.
And it's real hard for people to deal with, especially if you're leaving an abusive relationship or one where you've been betrayed over and over, and one of your beloved children says, but poor Dad, I just want him to be happy.
Mm-hmm. It is
and
difficult.
You just want to kill him,
Yeah, it is difficult. I was older when my parents divorced, but and luckily I didn't have to go through. They didn't badmouth each other, and there was a clear line in the sand as far as things went at one point. So what would you like to leave our listeners with today, Robin? It's always so fun talking with you.
Well, I think the thing that I always like to leave readers with is, it's a quote from one of my favorite movies, and I can't remember the title, but you'll remember it. It's about the hotel, the most beloved something hotel. The quote is, everything will be all right in the end, and if it is not yet all right, it's not yet the end.
I love that. I'll remember that. Thank you, Robin, for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
It's great fun. Thanks for having me.
And again, my guest, Robin Carr. You can find out much more about Robin at robincarr.com and her new book, The View from Alameda Island. And we will be right back. You're listening to Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair.
I hope it's going to be all right.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Let's see if I guess that... This just isn't working.
Knowing you have a great idea for a book is one thing, writing it another. So what's stopping you? Maybe you can't find time. Maybe you don't know where to begin. Maybe you wrote a couple of chapters, then disappeared down a rabbit hole. Or maybe you'd rather someone else write it for you. Partnering with the right coach or ghostwriter can make all the difference. between talking about your book and finishing your book. As an award-winning writer and strategic consultant, Vicki St. Clair's storytelling credits span from business, health, self-help, and memoir to New York Times and USA Today best-selling anthologies. Vicki partners with people just like you at the exact level you need, whether you need a little encouragement, editorial guidance, or full-blown ghostwriting and consulting services. If you're serious about telling the story you know is inside you, stop procrastinating. Let's get your story down on paper. Contact Vicki today. Email Vicki at VickiSt.Clair.com or call 1-800-495-7617. See more about Vicki and her work at VickiSt.Clair.com.
Yeah, that could work.
Are you ready for something real, raw, upfront, and honest? Then tune in each Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here for Love from the Hip. I am spiritual hypnotherapist, master esthetician, and the host, Sakura Sutter. This show is unlike anything you have ever heard and was created to help others to help themselves. Hear me follow up with guests I have hypnotized and see how it has improved their lives. I will also spotlight amazing people from around the world, their skin tips, live readings, and answers to life's burning questions. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m.
Do you love wildlife? Then make a real difference by helping Paws care for sick and injured wild animals. Volunteers help feed and clean the animals until they are well enough to return to the wild. Sign up today and help save a wild life. No experience necessary. All training is provided. Visit paws.org or call 425-787-2500.
Radio is very competitive. Shows soar in popularity and then flame out. Sometimes, however, a real connection is made with an audience, and success blooms year after year. For over a decade, Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair has built a loyal following thanks to inspiring and stimulating conversation. Longevity, loyalty, exclusivity. Smart advertisers seek it out. With Vicki's valuable audience, the search is over. Discover the affordable, effective ways to advertise your business. Log on to conversationslive.net. That's conversationslive.net today.
Alternative Talk 1150 online at 1150kknw.com.
And welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair. And coming up next, I'll be talking with A.F. Brady. She is the author of Once a Liar, just released. She's a New York State licensed mental health counselor and psychotherapist. She holds a bachelor's in psychology and 2 masters in psychological counseling. And she lives in New York with her family, and she's joining us today to talk about this. But also, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we're going to talk a little bit at the end about mental health awareness and what that means from A.F. Brady's point of view. A.F. Brady, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
And on your book, it's A.F. Brady, but we're going to call you Alex because it's kind of awkward saying A.F.
Sure is.
I appreciate you joining us today. Is this your second book, Alex?
Yes, it is. This is my second. My first book, The Blind, came out in September of 2017. And they're both standalones, but both psychological suspense novels.
Right. And so J.T. Allison blurbed on the front of the book here, and J.T.'s been on the show before. She says it sizzles with sinister madness and incessant tension right to the last page, which is echoes a lot of things that a lot of the reviewers have said too. So let's begin with your working in mental health. Had you always wanted to write?
Yeah, I think I had 2 passions growing up. One of them was counseling and therapy and taking care of people, and another one of them was writing, which I did very informally for sort of my whole life. I've always been putting pen to paper, but I never thought to submit anything for publication or to try to write books or do anything bigger than just rant into my computer in the evenings.
And so I read that you wrote your first book while you were pregnant and in bed a lot of the time.
Yeah, both of them, both books. Yeah, I had. It was interesting. I had a kid in 2016, a book in 17, a kid in 18, and a book in 19. So I guess I'm due another kid, but Not going to happen.
Well, we'll see. Can't always predict that one. So tell us a little bit about this book, because your main character begins with him, and lots of questions. I have a lot of questions about Peter Crane, your main character.
Absolutely.
But go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Well, he's a criminal defense attorney. He's in Manhattan. He's hell-bent on maintaining his pristine appearance and career status, and he's an excellent defense attorney, and moral flexibility and an incapacity for empathy and remorse tend to make him very well suited to do the business of defending the indefensible. And when the tables turn and he is accused of brutally murdering his ex-mistress, who just so happens to be the daughter of his professional rival, all the evidence does point to Peter. So the book kind of follows, will he be able to prove that his cold, calculating exterior is not really that of a killer, maybe just a not such a great guy, and can he truly change himself, or is he too far gone?
Good question. And so he is basically a sociopath. And I think, if I'm right, I didn't read the first book, but I think you brought your psychological background into the first book too. Is that correct?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah. And so was it inevitable for you when you were writing that you'd build a character like this?
Yeah, you know what? Yes, I think it was, because so much of what I've read and the movies that I've seen and so much of the media is from the perspective of people who have been victimized by sociopaths. And I wanted to sort of turn that around a little bit and get into the mind of a sociopath, much like Bret Easton Ellis did years ago with American Psycho. I just wanted to, sort of sit inside of his head for a while and wiggle around in there, see what it was like.
I hope it didn't do you permanent damage.
That's to be determined.
So let me ask you this question, because I've asked a lot of psychiatrists and even forensic psychiatrists the same question, and I tend to get slightly different answers. What is the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath?
Yeah, you're going to get different answers on that one. First of all, neither of those are clinical terms. They're both words that we use sort of in colloquial ways. But a sociopath is generally understood to be somebody suffering from antisocial personality disorder, and it's a diagnosable condition. And there's research that suggests that psychopathy, or being a psychopath, is different to antisocial personality disorder, but lots of overlap and lots of similarities. It's also generally understood that a sociopath is more maybe peaceful, and a psychopath is the more violent of the two personalities. But generally, I use them pretty interchangeably, and I think that there are going to be a lot of new developments in the research to find, how can we define the differences between the two, and who's more dangerous, I suppose.
Right.
Right. Yeah, they're both certainly marked by no regard for the feelings or experiences of others, a total lack of remorse and empathy, sort of an inability to experience emotions the way that the rest of us do. Their drives and goals are based in personal gratification, really just not caring about other people. And it's not a choice not to care. It's more an inability to care. Mm-hmm. So it's not being a jerk. It's missing a chip, if you know what I mean.
Right. I've read also that they're very good, for the most part, at mimicking emotions. And that's how they kind of walk among us, if you will, without recognition.
Absolutely, and can be incredibly charming, because they've learned that charm is an important tool in manipulation, and manipulation is an important tool in achieving the success that they are so often after, whatever the success may be, whether it's just finding out how to get dinner tonight or success of running major companies.
Right, and we've certainly seen many in major companies lately. So,
yes, we have.
So going back to Peter Crane then, you decide to make him a sociopath. So it's hard to read a book all the way through if the leading character doesn't have some kind of something about him that draws people to him. So explain to us how you made him a character that we'd stick with through the book.
I think instead of because I generally look for characters that can be sympathetic and that can be loved and that you can root for them or feel good about them. And I wanted to do the exact opposite because I am forgive me, I know you're in Washington State, but I am a diehard Yankee fan. And as much as I love the Yankees, I hate the Red Sox.
Right.
And that's what I was doing here. And I want to see everything that happens to them, and I watch all of their games because I would love to watch them lose. And it's the same thing with Peter, is as much as I would love to love him, instead I really love to hate him. And that's what drives the reader to get through. And I find that the way that the readers have been responding to me is that they really, really love to hate him and are flying through the book hoping something terrible happens.
Yes, a good way of putting that. And so when the book opens, he's at the funeral of his ex-wife, and it's the first couple of pages. I'm not spoiling anything here. But his son very quickly, in his speech, gives an idea of what Peter Crane's about.
Yeah. Absent, heartless, cold, calculating, but very, very good at his job.
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to continue talking with my guest here, A.F. Brady. Her new book is called Once a Liar, and you are listening to Conversations Live with Vicky St. Clair. We'll be right back.
You said too much, and what you said it was a lie.
I'm Paul George of the Indiana Pacers. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke. So I want you to learn to spot a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. I'm Paul George. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to the Ananda Institute of Living Yoga, we cover the world of animals. This week, October 27th, it's an encore harmonic energy shifting Sunday with Jude and Paul Potton from the Whispering Dragon Center. Hear them use their acutonic forks and chimes, Tibetan bowls and bells, pua and didge to help listeners and their animal friends with great information for all, and you can receive healing just by listening. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Conversations Live with Vicky St. Clair. Live well and live strong. Reach her great audience and advertise. Learn more at conversationslive.net.
Alternative Talk 1150, here to uplift your day.
And welcome back, everyone. You are listening to Conversations Live with Vicky St. Clair. And I'm talking with psychotherapist and author, thriller author, A.F. Brady. Her new book is called Once a Liar. And on the question on the front of the book is, he's guilty of many things, but is murder one of them? And you're going to have to read the book to find out, because we're not giving any spoilers away today. But I want to talk a little bit about location, because I always think location is a very important part of a story, Alex. And you set your book in Manhattan. Why did you choose Manhattan?
Well, both of my books that have been published are in Manhattan, and it's because I'm from Manhattan, and I know it inside and out, backwards and forwards, so I didn't have to, I saved myself some research on that one. And also, it's just the kind of city that can stand up to and house pretty much any kind of character, no matter what you bring into that city. That city can deal with everything that you throw at it. So if you come in with a really high-powered attorney who is misbehaving left and right, New York City is a perfect backdrop for that.
And yes, because people would just shrug their shoulders and walk on.
Sure. Yeah, I saw you yesterday. I'll see another one of you tomorrow.
So let's talk about a little bit about writing process, because I always am fascinated by people's writing progress. I talked with, what's his name? It's going to slip my mind, so I won't mention it. But I talked with somebody a couple of weeks ago, Greg Isles,
Yeah.
very well known. But he said, "Oh, who cares about process?" But and so, he has his own process for sure. But how does this work for you?
Well, I'm sort of partially a seat of my pants and partially a planner in most regards in my life. I'm an extremely planning, organized sort of person, but when it comes to writing, I have sketchy ideas, and then I sit down and some strange other being takes over me, and my fingers write stuff that I didn't really think I was going to write. And then I end up rereading it at the end of the day, and wow, that's awesome. What a good idea. But I didn't really know that I was writing it. So it's a little out of body, a little crazy.
Right. So do you ever have times when you sit down and write and at the end of the day you go, what the heck?
Yeah, I'm going to go with most often. And then I get very attached to something that I wrote. And it's only in like the second round of edits that I sit there and I say, look, that's terrible. And you're forcing this to fit somewhere and it doesn't. You got to just delete it or cut and paste it into I always have another document while I'm writing that's referred to as the holding cell, and that's where I put the big blurbs that I thought I could use but turn out to not really work.
That's a good one. The holding cell. I'm gonna steal that from you if that's okay.
Please do.
So yeah, for non-writers, I mean, there's a very common saying amongst editors. It's kill your darlings. If we are married to a phrase or a paragraph or a certain thing and we can't seem to make it work, it's because it shouldn't be there, right?
Yep, exactly.
And so did you learn that the hard way or the easy way?
I learned that a combination of the two. I have to learn things a few times for them to really, really get through. But with Once a Liar, it's a switch from now scenes to then scenes. And it was a strange adventure on this one because I wrote all of now, and then I wrote all of then, and then I shuffled it together. Okay.
I wondered, I've often asked people how they do that, if they write it as it comes to them, as it appears in the book. And you're the first person who's actually said they write it separately.
I didn't intend to do it that way. I actually wrote an entire book as if it were all going to just be now.
Yeah.
And then I realized, there's so much backstory that needs to be a part of this, that I did the then scenes to put it in, which really helped to drive the suspense and was much richer than leaving it just in nows. And so the first scene of the nows is the day after the last scene of the thens.
Okay.
So it kind of all comes together in a large circle.
It makes sense to me. Trust me, it makes sense to me.
Thank you.
Not that it needs to. It's your process. But so is there a particular scene that you find more difficult to write? Are there particular scenes that you really don't like writing or absolutely love to write?
Well, in both of my books, I killed people that I really, really liked. And in writing it and in rereading it afterwards, I've cried a number of times, but it needed to happen. I really enjoy writing the sort of comeuppance scenes, when somebody gets theirs. I really, really, really enjoy writing that, and I am often smacking the keys very hard and laughing maniacally, and this is why I write alone behind closed doors.
In a soundproof room.
Exactly, far away from children and small animals.
Right.
But yeah, I really enjoy the whole thing, but when something comes together, or if I get an better idea, then I'm just so excited, and all other necessities go to the wayside, and I just sit there for hours, and it's so much fun. I just love writing.
Mm. How important are names in your book? I talked to somebody a little while ago who'd written the whole book and still had not decided on an official name. He kept flip-flopping backwards and forwards between two names.
I feel that names are very important, but there are also, in some cases it needs to be a quick one-syllable name so that it's easy to say. And in other places I've got names in my head that are just inherently creepy or inherently powerful, and I want to make sure that the name has the right the right association. You know what I mean? Like, I've got, in the one that I'm currently writing right now, I've got this character who I absolutely love, and she is just super, super badass, and her name is Lucy, and that just works so much for me, for her to be this powerful, sort of, you know, doesn't take any nonsense from anyone, and Lucy could it's the only name that she could have.
Right. So if you were casting a Hollywood star in the role of Peter Crane, do you have an image of who that would be?
I can do, I think of like a John Hamm, or a Tom Hardy who can play like villains that way, but also have just incredible presence and can just act with their face, and they don't need to say everything, because that's a big thing for me, for him to just be able to portray stuff without needing to say a lot of things. And I think that those two guys would be pretty good in this one.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that, very much so. So I read that you don't really write at a desk. You've got kids, so you write wherever you can. How does that work for you? How do you fit it into a day?
Well, these days I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old, so mercifully they still nap. So I try to get as much writing as I can. My elder child is in school, so my daughter, the younger one, she naps in the morning while he's at school. So that's 2 kids, gone, so I can sit and write in the morning, because I'm smarter in the morning without any doubt than I am later in the day. So I try to get as much done then. And I've even started, and it's horrible, waking up before them to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recommend that.
You're not a morning person.
I've become one, against my will. These are the hours that I used to be still up, and now I am up again.
Yeah. It's funny, one of my most creative times ever is when I've got jet lag. So, when I've gone back to England for 6, 7, 8 weeks at a time, and I've really got into the time zone there, and then I come back here and I'm waking up at 2:30 and 3 o'clock. Yeah. And I'm wide awake. And of course, nobody else is. And so I find it's a really creative time for me. But of course, as the weeks go on, it gets later, and I get up later and later in the morning.
Yeah, I love writing on international flights, because you don't have to do anything. Everything is taken care of for you. You're supposed to sit down. You're supposed to not move. And if you need a cocktail or a tissue, you just raise your hand and it appears before you. It's the best. Yeah. I get lots of work done in those environments.
So this is your second book. Once a Liar is your second book. What did you learn from writing the first book that you tried to incorporate into this? Because I think as we grow and evolve, as a writer, we do things a little differently, maybe.
Yes, certainly. I think from I wrote The Blind not realizing how to write for an audience. So I wrote for myself more than anything else. And in the editing process, it developed into a book written, for me, for myself, for my audience, for people in particular. And I learned how to get out of my own head, because I would write a lot knowing what I meant, but it wasn't necessarily coming across. And so I learned how to do that much better. I also learned I was a little bit, not disappointed, let's say, but maybe about the number of hints that I dropped in the first one.
Oh.
So I was very careful on hints in the second one, because I love people figuring it out whenever they figure it out, because you figure it out on the last page, you figure it out on the first page, whatever it is, there's always that feeling of like, oh, I figured it out. So it's a good feeling whenever it happens, but I'd like it to be something where people can feel more shocked. So I put a little bit more of a shock factor into this one. Now, of course, I'm going to get an email from a listener saying, well, I wasn't shocked at all.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just figure the way something's going, and it may or may not end up that way anyway.
Exactly. So. Just, stick your finger in your ears and hope and hope.
So let's talk a little bit about dialogue, because that's always really important to a good flow in a story. How do you write your dialogue?
I do a lot of very serious rapid-fire writing, just blasting it out, and then I find myself going back and having to delete a couple of exchanges because I base it very, very much on reality, where people will stop and say, "What do you mean?" And then the other person will respond by repeating themselves. And so I write that way, and then I have to go and delete all the "what do you means" because it's ridiculously repetitive.
Right.
And then I add in the "he said, she leaned back and pondered before she responded, get out," So I have to do it that way.
Right, but that's what makes it believable, though, starting in that place of reality and then paring it down.
Right, exactly. It's just, and there's a lot of stream of consciousness that I do, and I tend to throw in a number of profanities just to put my point across, and then realize that that's a pretty cheap way of getting your point across. So I've jumped into the thesaurus here and there to help me out on what's another word to use.
So as we start writing a book, if we make it known to people, there's there are always people out there who want to give us advice. Have you received a really good piece of advice that you carry with you?
At the time that I heard it, and it was from my agent, and at the time that I heard the advice, I thought it was preposterous. But now it's the best piece of advice I've gotten. She's like, if you want to write a book, you have to give it a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah, and so simple, right?
It's unbelievably simple. And I said, well, what else would I do? And then I looked at the draft that I had just given her, and I was like, oh, you know what? I don't have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I sort of have a middle, and I have an end, but that's it.
Right.
And so it ended up being a really, really great piece of advice. And also, if you're reading, and a number of people have given me this piece, every single chapter has to be doing something. It needs to be here for a reason. And I'm from a talking profession, and a listening profession, so I want all of the details. I want to hear all of the background information. How did you get here? The journey from where somebody started to where they ended up is what I'm most interested in as a therapist. And so I ended up writing chapters that were just droning background information. And she's like, we are not going anywhere with this chapter. What is this here for? And I said, well, background, isn't that important? She's like, look, two sentences go a long way.
Right.
You do not need a chapter about that time she was on a trampoline with her dog.
Well, I read here, you have a very interesting bedside table of books here. I read that you, this was an interview you did with Heather Gudenkauf. I think she's been on the show a couple of times. You had on your bedside table the DSMV desk reference, which of course is for your medical work, and Sid Field's screenplay, The Foundations of Screenwriting, and then Michelle Obama's Unbecoming. But I think screenplay writing really teaches you to make stuff move forward because you have such a limited amount of time there, and every single thing that's uttered has to move that story forward. So
absolutely, and that was such a great lesson to read those books. And novel writing and screenplay writing are such different animals, but learning how to do one really, really informs how to do the other one.
Right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I could talk with you for another hour here, but we're out of time. And I wanted just to touch very quickly, since you are a psychotherapist and counselor and have been for many years, it is May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah.
That was a mouthful. Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's just staggering to see the statistics around mental health and how many people really need help and are not getting it because of stigma or because of lack of medical resources. So what do you want to say to us about this Awareness Month?
Well, I think that awareness is the key term there, is that in order to limit our stigmas, we need to challenge ourselves. We need to challenge what it is that we think we know about mental illness, and we need to educate ourselves. And that is a free thing that every single one of us can do. We can commit to making an effort to learning more about the actual experience of having a mental illness, what it looks like, what it sounds like. We can decide that we don't necessarily want to be a part of stigmatizing people who are going through this. And once we start educating ourselves, we can educate others, we can advocate, we can go out there and we can be the change that we want to see in the world. Thank you, Gandhi. And we can help in so many ways where it feels like we're all tied up in bureaucratic red tape with the way that we can't change the system. The system is based on people and their education. And we can get out there, we can learn. And anybody who's interested in learning and wants to know where to start, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, get on their website. It is a very, very easy to understand place where you can start to educate yourself about what mental illness and mental wellness are like and how you can help just by learning a little bit.
Yeah. Alex, thank you so much. I read a statistic that said only 41% of adults in the U.S. with a mental health condition received mental health services in the past year, which is just staggering.
It's devastating.
So, yeah. So thanks very much. I appreciate you being with us today, Alex.
Thank you very much for having me.
And Alex's book is called Once a Liar. It's under A.F. Brady. And you can find out more about Alex and her work at afbrady.com. And that brings us right to the end of today's show. We have to rush out of here. So we'll see you next week. Until then, live well, live strong. You can find out more about us at conversationslive.net.
Radio is very competitive. Shows soar in popularity and in flame out. Sometimes, however, a real connection is made with an audience, and success blooms year after year. For over a decade, Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair has built a loyal following thanks to inspiring and stimulating conversation. Longevity, loyalty, exclusivity. Smart advertisers seek it out. With Vicki's valuable audience, the search is over. Discover the affordable, effective ways to advertise your business. Log on to conversationslive.net. That's conversationslive.net today.
The program that just aired is an encore presentation of Conversations Live with Vicki St. Clair. Vicki returns to broadcast live in studio in November. You can contact Vicki at conversationslive.net.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of KKNW, its management, or other advertisers. Contests are the responsibility of the host of this program and not KKNW. This is Alternative Talk 1150 AM, KKNW Seattle, and KNUC 98.9 HD3 Seattle.
Well, good afternoon. Eric Ryder here with you on Alternative Talk 1150 AM. We're headed towards 1. Time for a quick look at our traffic. Things looking pretty good around the sound. No blocking incidents, no major slowdowns. Stay tuned for So You Think You're Awake with Michael Sheridan. It's our Dream Interpretation show brought to you by Ashling Dream Interpretation. Right now, 53 degrees under cloudy skies here in the Puget Sound. Expecting more rain as the day progresses.
No broken promise. Facebook disinformation. I'm Mike Moss. President Trump says the U.S. never promised to protect the Kurds in Syria and denies he abandoned or betrayed them. We get more from White House correspondent Bob Costantini.
Feeling abandoned by the United States, Kurds in at least one Syrian town where Turkey wants control threw potatoes at American armored personnel carriers pulling U.S. forces out. President Trump holding a cabinet meeting.
We never gave the Kurds a commitment that we'd stay for the next 400 years and protect them.
As many as 11,000 Kurdish fighters died in a battle to contain ISIS. The president maintains U.S. and NATO support led to thousands of ISIS fighters being taken prisoner.
I'm the one, meaning it was me and this administration, working with others, including the Kurds, that captured all of these people that you're talking about right now.
Bob Costantini, the White House.
Facebook is stepping up its efforts to ensure it is not used as a tool to interfere in politics and democracies around the world. Correspondent Donnie O'Sullivan reports Facebook has identified and removed new disinformation that is aimed at Joe Biden.
Now, we've been told by Facebook that the trolls took a lot of steps to hide their identities, to conceal the fact that they are in Russia.
Facebook has created a security tool for elected officials and candidates, monitoring them for hacking attempts. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers has called the state legislature back into session to address gun violence.
It's pretty straightforward. If you are unable to get guns because of your background, you won't be able to use those guns. Now, will this be the answer, be all to end all? Absolutely not, but it is a great first step.
Philadelphia police are searching for the shooters involved in the killing of a 2-year-old struck in her home and an 11-month-old shot 4 times and in critical condition. On Wall Street, the Dow is up 38, S&P up 18. I'm Mike Moss.
Time now for a quick look at our weather outlook. Looks like more rain tonight. We'll see a low around 55. Tomorrow, good chance of rain, but gradually becoming mostly sunny in the afternoon with a high near 60. Low around 47. A partly sunny Wednesday ahead with a high near 58. Low around 48. Mostly sunny Thursday, high near 61.
The views expressed on this program are those of the host, guest, and callers and are not necessarily those of KKNW, its management, or other advertisers. This program is sponsored by Ashwing Dream Interpretation.
Welcome to So You Think You're Awake with Michael Sheridan.
Hello and welcome to So You Think You're Awake, the show about life transformation through dream interpretation. I'm Michael Sheridan. On this show, through analysing your dreams, I reveal your potential and the obstacles you need to overcome. I'm very specific. I tell you the magic power you have, what makes you magnificent, and the bumps in life that are holding you back. These bumps are not in the way, they are the way. To get in on the action, go to dream-analysis.com, fill in the form and submit your dream to the show. That's it. That's all you have to do. And I take it from there. Every dream you hear on the show is submitted on one of those forms. So this show airs live on KKNW on Mondays at 1 p.m. Pacific time. But I also turned it into a podcast, and it also will be airing live on Awake TV on Facebook and Vimeo. I just say that because many of you probably only know it as one show or the other, but it goes out in 3 places. So let's start straight off into the dreams. I've got what I think is quite an interesting dream here, but then I often find that I think every dream is interesting. Oh, I have to say a thank you to everybody for the feedback for last week's show. Several people wrote and said that it's their favorite show ever, and I mean, I liked it, so I knew it was good, but it's always interesting to see, especially when a few people separately said it was their favorite. So I obviously did something different, and I think what I did was I did a longer dream with a lot more detail, so maybe I'll do that a bit more. But here's an interesting dream. The lady says, my husband and I are on a journey and we come to this exquisite resort. It reminds me of Cinque Terre in Italy, but it is not that place. We parked, I assumed, as next we walk in and had to go up this elevator. So I'll continue a bit more. So my husband pushes the button and we get in the elevator. It is amazing. It's like the size of a room, and I'm looking around going, wow, this is an elevator. On the back wall of the elevator, opposite side of the door, is a 4-pane window with light coming through, shining on the floor. There is a plant in a pot strategically located in the light. On the floor to the left side of the window is a pair of old, well-worn work boots, the type you would wear at a construction site or even at Boeing in the factory. Okay, I'm going to stop there and hopefully keep my thumb on that place. So I will say more about some of these symbols when we get to the end of the dream. But when we see, and this dreamer works for Boeing, so when we see that Mary says there's well-worn boots, and we also see that she says she's parked, and then we see the well-worn boots are there and they're not being worn anymore. And they're not worn out either. That's an important thing to say. So these symbols say that the dreamer is actually going to retire. So finish working for Boeing and going to move on to something different. It also is a comment in the relationship too, because we have the husband in the dream. That's always the easiest way to tell a dream is about relationship if your partner's in there. So you and your partner are basically going to move on to a higher level, and that's what going into this elevator and moving up is about. You said in comments that you have a fear of elevators, but in this one you're very impressed. You like it. It's big and it's got lots of light and so on. So this is like overcoming your fears and stepping into something completely new. You've stepped out of the old boots that you used to wear, not that you wore boots, and you're changing. Now there's a little bit more, so let's continue on. On the other side, the right side, there's other miscellaneous things which I don't remember what they were. I turn around. Then why did you tell us? I'm only kidding. I turn around and face the elevator door. To the left side of the elevator door, there's an old, nice, beautiful carved wooden desk that if you lift the lid of the desk, it has a sink in it. It was beautiful. I believe it was a porcelain type sink. I thought, wow, I've not seen anything like that before, but I knew that what it was, and it must be really old. We get out of the elevator to walk out into this incredible, stunning view. Okay, so this is, like I said, it's improving your view in the relationship. So it's improving the relationship and improving your view of the world. But there's a little bit more to the fact that it has improved the view. So let's go back to this desk that has the sink in it. And what I wrote and asked you, was the sink blue by any chance? And you wrote back, yes, it was. So this is saying that writing is something that you need to do, and writing is going to help you heal an issue with your kidneys, with your elimination system, but particularly the kidneys. And that's going to help you health-wise. Not something that you probably are going to do immediately, but you're going to do it. You're definitely going to write. And that's part of the elevation. So now let's go back. The stunning view, yeah. We get out of the elevator to walk out into this incredible, stunning view. To the left are some other buildings with other people or groups of people. This tells us you're meant to work with groups of people. Indeed, you are going to work with groups of people. There are couples everywhere. The view is beautiful, but what is the most stunning is the pools. There is water flowing from pool to pool, and they're all different sizes and depths. All around are couples, but not too many. They're enjoying the pools and the views. We walk over to the reception area to check in. A man stopped by and says that we really should stay for the night. Most people only stay for the day and then continue on their journey, but I recommend staying for the night so you're all well rested. We get a room to stay for the night and go enjoy. And it continues on. So I'll stop there. I mean, it's nearly over, but I'll stop there. So this is saying when you retire, your guide in the dream, anybody who speaks with authority, is telling you to take a rest. Don't immediately launch from retiring into this other work. Take a rest, enjoy it, and then move on into the next phase of your life. You say the next day, as we were traveling, we see other people that didn't stay that night having issues. We see the same guy hold up a sign as we travel by. He is looking good. And then I wake up. Okay, so what about these couples and the groups and so on? And the stunning view over Cinque Terre. So what this dream says is that you are going to help people get a higher perspective, because you've got this higher perspective from moving up in this elevator. You're going to help them see a higher perspective on their life. So you're going to help couples, let's say. You're going to work with groups, but also couples. So you're going to help them see the karma in their lives, which is what Cinque Terre is about. Karma on the land. 5 is a number for karma. But Italy is about the heart. So you're going to help them see how their karma is actually beautiful. And I asked you what Cinque Terre is about, and you said it's 5 cities on mountain tops or in mountains, and they're all connected together by this path. So you're going to help people see the connectedness of the karmic events and karmic stops in their lives, and how the beauty of that system is actually helping them. And when I was describing this to the lady, it was easier to explain it to her, so I don't know if I can get it across on the air. But basically, the couples that will work with are going to see how, like, they're going to start off thinking, okay, we rub each other the wrong way, we get each other's backs up. But after working with Mary, they're going to have the view that their best friend is helping them with their karma, helping them achieve what it is they came here to achieve, helping them to see things about themselves and heal those things about themselves that need the healing. And that's what this stunning view is about. So you're going to do this with groups of people, but you're also going to do it with couples. And we see this guy at the end of the dream, or not the guy, but you say that the people that didn't stop and take a rest are continuing to have issues. Now that's about you needing to take the rest too, but it's also saying that from you helping people get this perspective, get this higher perspective on how the karmic path is such a beautiful path, because it really is. It allows us to achieve our life goals even if we're complete idiots and we don't want to achieve our goals because we don't even know that we have any. Karma allows us to achieve our goals even in that closed eyes state. But you're going to help people by opening their eyes to the beauty of that system so that they then embrace the healing that they need to do, and so on. So really, really quite a nice dream. And I hope I've caught everything in it. but I really wanted to start with that one. So let's move on. This one is from Janik. And sometimes the names I use on the show aren't the real names, but people can fill in a pseudonym on the web form. But Janik says, great fan of the podcast. I learn a lot. Thank you very much, Janik. Over the past few years after moving away from parents. Okay, so let's skip that and move into the dream. You say, I am in a kind of encircled encampment. English isn't great here, but that's okay. That's one of the beauties about dreams. Regardless of the language, it doesn't matter. The language is irrelevant. Dreams surpass all that. We speak dreams way before we learn another language. So before we ever learn our native language, and we think, okay, why don't our dreams just speak English or just speak French, whatever it is? The reason they don't do that is because you're dreaming in the womb. You're dreaming for the first year of your life as well. So you're having dreams that are directing you about what your life's about way before you ever learned that language that you currently are using, that you now say, why don't they come to me that way? It's because they predate it. They're much more important than that language. And they'll be still using the dream language when you move on to another language and so on in another lifetime. Anyway, I'm in a kind of encircled encampment with other people, or 4 people outside in the wild. Aliens, grey in color, are roaming freely in groups. So we know from the groups that you're a spiritual leader. The aliens, and we have had aliens come up and UFOs come up in dreams many times before. And I always say that they are about your guides. Now, they aren't always, but 95% of the time they're about your guides and you having an ability to channel. So that's what you look for first, because it's such a common thing. And you say that these are aliens like exactly like the monsters from the Alien movie. You say, so they are killer monsters as depicted in the movies made by Ridley Scott starring Sigourney Weaver. So you mentioned an actress, but she's not in the dream. But again, like I said, we look to see, is this going to be about your ability to communicate with your guides? We also know you're a spiritual leader because we had the groups there as well. Now, aliens can be other things. What else can they be? They can be if you have an infection, you've picked up a bug or something like that. It can be about that as well. It can be other things too, but 95% of the time it's going to be about what this one is, which is your guides and you getting in touch with them. So the aliens somehow get close to me, / the humans inside the encircled encampment. Let's say circular encampment. That's probably what's meant. On the roof or something. Okay. So now when we see it's on the roof is about our spiritual side, our higher aspect. So that's what the focus of the dream is. So we definitely know it's about guides in this dream. So why do you have aliens then? Why do we have these scary ones from that movie? And the answer is because you have a fear that you need to overcome with regard to connecting with your guides. That's all it is. And it doesn't mean there's anything bad ever going to come from it. In fact, it wouldn't. But letting you know that like you have that fear. Now you would already know. Then you say, then I get to a place that looks like a cave or the entrance to a base. A man is at the entrance in astronaut's gear, but I can see he also has grey skin like the aliens. He's half man, half alien. In fact, we all are. Because we're not human. Like we come here and inhabit a body, but we're actually spirits, just like our guides are. And so it's kind of funny when you think of it that way, that we are afraid to contact the spirit world, even though that's where we came from, or we're afraid to contact our guides, even though we are the same as them ultimately. Anyway, he's half man, half alien, probably the leader or spokesman for the aliens. So what did I say? You're a leader, and here we have a leader showing up in the dream. And whatever trait your guides have, you have that in spades. So you are a leader. We know that for sure. Let's see. Probably our spokesman for the aliens. Inside the base from outside, I can see sculptures of naked women or statues of women in sexual poses. The alien man seems friendly or willing to talk. Okay, so let's ignore the statues for a moment. So the alien man seems willing to talk. So this is definitely about communicating with your guides, because the aliens are your guides, and you come across this guy who is half man, half alien, who is willing to talk to you. Definitely about communication, channeling your guides. You've got that in spades. Now, why the statues? Well, statues represent goals or ideals, and they're all female. So it's saying you need to work on your female side. That would be the best goal for you to set is work on issues that will help the flow of female energy within you. And the sexual poses are about getting intimately in touch with your female side. That would be like, we all have male and female energy. And it's nothing to do with being a man or a woman, but generally women are more in touch with their female side. I mean, a lot more than men are. But as a man, you can get intimately in touch with your female side. And that's what this stream is saying, that this would really be a goal for you to do. It would be an ideal thing. So such a good goal that we will mark it by a statue, and think how long it takes to make a statue. So there it is. You called it Alien Base as well. So you're a channel, and you have the ability to work with groups of people. So you're a leader of groups of people. And spiritual leadership works through female energy, with an open and compassionate heart. So you're helping people, but you're not judging them. And so this is why this makes sense then, why the dream is saying get in touch with your female side. So let's have a look at another one. This one is from Kelly. She says, I was in a green forest with market stalls full of people selling their wares. So the forest tells us straight away you have elimination system issues. It's not a big thing. It doesn't really show up in the dream, except that this takes place in a forest. So anyway, you say it's a green forest. So we know it's something to do with the heart. And then selling their wares, it means that you have spiritual abilities, and I'm looking ahead, but you have spiritual abilities that you're meant to sell. So you're meant to work in the spiritual field and make money from working in the spiritual field. I was at a table looking at jewelry, and this is me looking ahead. That's why I said it's spiritual stuff. Looking at jewelry that was in a small jug-shaped vessel, filled with small round black stones. I was feeling them in my hands and admiring them. Then the seller said to me that God told him that stones were my thing. Okay, so crystals are your thing, very clearly. You also are a channel, because the person in the dream, the guide in the dream, says that they got a message from a higher source. So you're able to get messages from a higher source. They say God in the dream. That may reflect or may not reflect your spirit, religious nature. It doesn't matter. But it means that you can channel, because the person in the dream can channel. You also have the ability to work with stones, and you said that you're feeling them in your hands. So stones speak to you. Basically, if you pick up a crystal, you know what that crystal does, what it's about, what it can be used for, and who it would be useful for. So I come across people with lots of abilities all the time. People who have an affinity for crystals, it's not that common, by the way, but people who do, it just makes sense to them. They don't have to read books about them, and maybe they do read the books, but they already know what the crystals are for, and why they're good, and why you shouldn't have this particular crystal in your bedroom and you should have these other 5, etc. I don't have that ability. I know if I pick up a crystal, I can tell you what it does to me, how it changes my energy, but that's as far as it goes. And I do use crystals. I do indeed. But anyway, so you've got this ability to work with crystals. And then what have we got? Then I was in another part of the market, which was still in the forest, but there were couches scattered around, and I was admiring all these beautiful Chinese ornaments and trinkets. So the couches scattered around, isn't that weird? Seems really strange. But think about a couch. What are couches used for? If you think about spiritual abilities, it's going to be about counseling. Especially because it's not in an ordinary context. It's like if a bed isn't in a bedroom, then it's about your spiritual side, because when we sleep, we leave our bodies, and we are very spiritually aware at that point. So this is the same. The couches aren't in their ordinary setting, so it's about a spiritual side. You have the ability to counsel. I don't think you like it, though. Anyway, and you'll see why later on. You're admiring these Chinese ornaments and trinkets. The people sitting on the couches are playing Chinese string instruments, and the sound was hauntingly beautiful. So again, you have the ability to channel because the person told you that they're getting channeling information from a higher source. And then people are playing string instruments. So music in dreams is also about channeling. So that's really good. And there's people sitting on the couches. So the channeling is connected to how you're going to help people with your counseling skill. You're going to channel information that's going to help you. The market seller told me to hurry up and choose something because my group was leaving. I looked around and saw a brown hippie dress on a couch. So why the pressure? Because there's never pressure. Well, dreams that show like being late for something are usually about karma, and they tell you, look, you promised before you got this spot on the planet that you would have this done by age 25, and look, now you're 40 or whatever it is, and you haven't started yet. Please get a move on. And that's really all that's about. But it's not, the age thing isn't really huge. It's more like just getting into it and using it and doing it, and do it at any age. Never think, hey, I'm 71, it's too late, I might as well give up. That's crazy. Anyway, you told you to hurry up, your group was leaving. So again, the group says that you can work with groups of people, and you have spiritual leadership abilities too. So quite a few. And I've listed them at the end, so I'll summarize. I looked around and saw a brown hippie dress on a couch. So we have the couch again. And then the hippie dress is, well, let's continue on. I looked at it, it had the number 14 on it, which is my size. I put it on and it fit perfectly. I looked in the mirror. I was wearing a white long sleeve shirt underneath the brown dress. It had a cut out square flap which sat in the back, and 2 diagonal lines that went from the outside of my waist to the middle of my dress. But they didn't meet in the middle. I looked in the mirror and thought the dress suited me. Okay, so the hippie dress, what is a hippie dress about? Hippies are about being free to be yourself. And so that's what you're being told, that getting into this is you being yourself, or you freeing yourself to be yourself. And you told me that you work as a nurse at the moment, but your real, and that's great, but your real skill set is leadership, helping people through counseling and channeling. And you say that it was a long sleeve shirt underneath the brown dress, and it's white. So white is positive with other things, but the brown is it shows up in the dream because the elimination system is there, but it's also a practical color. So it says like getting into this would be practical, which kind of means you probably don't really like the idea of counseling. And then it's a long sleeve dress, so that's not good. The fact that a long sleeve, so a short sleeve, anything in a dream is about, if somebody's wearing short sleeves, it's basically them saying, hey, look, or a guide saying, I've nothing up my sleeve, I've nothing hidden. This is me just being honest. And so that's what it's asking you to do, is don't hide this aspect of yourself. And it has a square cutout in the back, which is about removing limitation from the past. That's what it's asking you to do, because that's cut out. It's a flap, but it's still a cutout. So get rid of it. The 2 diagonal lines that don't meet in the middle is about your channeling. Let's move it on. When I walked towards the psychic lady's stall to pay for it, I felt something in my pocket. It was a bracelet. So again, you're psychic. You have a strong connection with your higher self. That's what psychic means. I wanted to wear it, but the psychic gave me a different necklace to wear. It was a pearl necklace. So pearls are about counseling as well. So we have the couches and the pearls, both saying you're a counselor, so we know you have it for sure. But here's the bad thing. I looked in the mirror, but I didn't think it matched the dress I was wearing. So that means that you don't think counseling is a good match for you. And that's something that you have to heal. So I've summarized them because there's quite a lot in this dream. First of all, you need to free yourself to be yourself, remove limitation from the past, which is the square flap in the back. You have the ability to feel crystals. They speak to you and they tell you how they work. You're also a hands-on healer, because you have emphasis on the hands and so on. But also, I don't think I've ever met a crystal healer who isn't also a hands-on healer. So you have that. You're also a channel. That's really good. Shows up beautifully in the dream because you talk about, and you're asked to see it in a beautiful way because you say the music was so beautiful. Then you're a counselor, and that works in combination with your channeling. But you say it doesn't match the dress. So it probably means something along the lines of you don't want to have to tell people what to do. You'd rather just be the nice person, and counselors aren't always the nice person. And then lastly, you are a psychic, and a psychic works through feelings, through female energy, and it's where you just get intuition or a knowing about somebody, and it's always accurate. It doesn't require logic. So the last note I have is that you don't want to be defined as a counselor. Anyway, write and let us know what you think of that, because I'm sure it is not what you expected that dream to be about. And one more dream from Kelly, just to emphasize the channeling. You say, I wanted to sing. I was a young girl, 12 years old. I was meant to sing in a choir, but I was kicked out because I was with my mum and I didn't want to do it. The song was beautiful. I was shown the music that the choir sang and that I was left out of. I could read the music really well. I was a natural singer. I can't remember what the title of the music was, but it was similar to Hosanna. The teacher spoke to my mum and she said it was a shame I wasn't in the group singing. So we can see this as well. Your spiritual leadership is there, your ability to work with groups, because the teacher and the group and all that are mentioned. So it's saying that what you need to do is let go of issues picked up by from mom at a young age. Now you say you were 12 in the dream, so it could be around 12, but usually it goes way before that, but at 12 you will at least recognize it. So that would be the significance. So something happens at 12 that allows you know, oh yeah, I've got this trait. But you're a channel. That's what it's all about, and that's what the singing is about. But you need to heal the issues around mom in order for you to open up to using it. And it's not that you're being blocked from it. It's the issues with mom block your channeling. That's really the way to look at it. But really good. I like those two dreams. Thanks for sending them in. So